Alright, hey everybody, Texas Stroker here in Lance's Performance Shop, Lone Star Mopars.com. With gunshots ring off in the background, we're back with the Ram Revival. Not sure if we're going to split this into two parts. If we are, I look really smart because this is the start of a new one. If not, well, that was just an awkward little segue for you. But it is a new day. It's Wednesday now. Didn't get any time when you get home super late from work. It's hard to have time for your fun stuff, right? And what I've been doing while I've had this break, just by not having time to work, is I've been thinking about trying to maybe pull the lower dash from inside the truck. You know, like there's kind of one hiccup. I'm kind of thinking it's a setup where you have the dash assembly, the lower dash, and then the upper dash, and the upper dash nests over the lower dash. Just looking at some of the part lines, particularly over on the passenger side. And if that's the case, obviously that would kind of be awkward or maybe more complicated than it's worth. But again, go back to my main theme, which is just trying to keep the parts that aren't reproduced from breaking. And that seems like a good way to do it if I'm able to remove the majority of the structure in here. And the reason I say that, I've been asking myself as I lay in bed at night, and I've said, hey, you know, do I really want to put that dash back in there as is? And what I mean by as is, obviously the defect would be the top plastic that's cracked, and we're taking care of that, right? So the other glaring issue that you really only see when you have the plastic off and you're disassembling is the flash rusting of the metal subframe, right? If we had the kick panel back up here, you would see nothing. The knee knocker, the knee pad, whatever you want to call it, you would have no idea that that surface rust was even back there. It's not a big deal. It's not like it's going to be, you know, decomposed in 5 years and structurally compromised. It's just there, and now we know it's there, and I'm the type of person that has problems with that. And, I'm considering, even if I can't take this lower dash out, I'm considering taking it off when the whole assembly's out so I can prep and paint the subframe. We may change our tune. Maybe it's more complicated than it's worth. Maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe it's a time crunch. I don't know, but tentatively thinking for my unknown future, I'm kind of thinking that might be a decent idea. So the Braun died Sunday. We had to bust out the Astros. Now we're working on it. We'll see how it does this time. But right here, back to the steering column. All right. If you see, we've got a tab. There's sort of a plastic connector here, and then there's a wire. It's kind of a copper color, and it runs up, and there's a metal tab in this area. Which when I set this down, you'll maybe see it a little bit better. There it's in focus. So if you see all the multicolored wires right there, and then look up and see the black thing right up there, it's where that wire comes through. That is actually for your gear selector. That little plastic kind of knurled end on a knob. You're thinking like, what in the world is that? Well, that's how you adjust it. You know, if you ever have a situation where maybe you took your car in for some work or a recall or whatever it might have been, and it drives you crazy because there's like a black gap, all right, here on your cluster. If can't really get there, but let's say that orange marker wasn't quite dialed in. It was offset left or right. You can adjust that, and the way you adjust it is with that knurled knob down below. So it's critically important, at least for us folks with an automatic, that we get rid of that by doing the simple procedure of removing this tab right there. We will avoid breaking anything or doing something really stupid. So I'll try to showcase that better when we get it out. I'm not really able to position this light. It doesn't like standing as well as our Braun does. But if I zoom in right there, let me get my finger in and hope it doesn't lose focus. This is the tab. That's where it's resting. Again, that's what controls it. The knob back here, that's what would adjust your park, your gear indicator, if you will. So you can also see the rust a little bit better. Again, it's not a huge deal, but it's there, and it kind of bothers me, right? So maybe something we tackle. I also went ahead and I ordered some more felt pads. Mine are red, like red velvet. Cue the song, we would, but we can't because of copyright, thanks. But it's a situation where I picked up some more just in case we need them or we want to reinforce areas. But we're going to hit that, and then if we come in right here, which again, this is kind of awkward Let's see if I can find it. The silver thing, the only silver thing there, that is a T20, all right? And that is something that we need to remove to drop the steering column. The cover, at least. Now, up in here, there's two really dark holes on either side. And I believe those probably have T20s recessed way back in there. So, lucky for us, for all of you tool people, we've got our brand new fancy Witte ones with the updated color scheme and everything. So we'll put those to work. We'll pan back out for you. And I think that's where we'll leave it. Not sure where. We'll probably tilt down to pull the cluster. But that's about all the yakking I'm going to do for now. And so that's going to be our first order of business. This will be the second order of business. I'll update you as we go, and then I do believe there are 5 screws. I could be mistaken here, but if you look at the black screw up there at the top, right, you've got one on the corner, you got one over on the end, we've got another down here sort of below your trip odometer type of thing, and then one right here below the fuel door. So I guess that's 4. So the 4 black screws that look just like the ones all over the dash, I think that's all that's going to hold the cluster in. Now keep in mind, disconnect if you're an automatic, the cable we spoke of, and then where you see kind of the shiny head Phillips, which I think there's actually 5 of those. No, there's more. That's going to hold the lens on, all right? And of course, you could leave that conceivably. My thing is, I'd sort of like to get it out, just so we don't do anything stupid and scuff it or damage it. I say that as it's covered in dust, but that's part of living where I do. So I'll go ahead and possibly do all 3 of those and come back and sort of let you know if we run into any issues. Alright, couple of notes here. I did review the footage from this weekend, and sometimes you could hear the fan. My apologies about that, but again, it's 105 right now. So after work. But got this off. Wanted to give you a quick tip on that. This clip right here will be retained on the underside. You'll note that I've got it positioned above. By putting it up on the top, it actually makes it super easy to get the clip turned and off of the lock rod. The other thing to note, I thought, well, maybe it's easier, to take that off if it's in low gear. That is not the case. Park is going to be down here. This seems stupid now, but somebody will benefit from knowing this. So, park is right there, kind of where you see the rod. And when you go into low gear, that position of the rod is going to go up. It does not come down, it's going to go up. And like I said, if you're ever in a position, that could be very, very useful information to you. So what I will do now, I guess, is probably hit the bottom of the column, just while it's still up and kind of easier to access, and should still be able to tilt with the cover off. So that's what I'll do now, and we'll see how it goes. Alright, so this will crack, this will creak, will probably scare you. But that is one of the sides. I assume the other side will be the same way. I'm going to bring it down in here to the floorboard. Again, using a quality Torx driver is important if you want to retain and reuse these screws. You'll note the one in the middle. Let me zoom in for you. The one in the middle, this was our center column one that you could see that's exposed. It is a silver screw, and it is significantly longer with much, much finer thread, right? That will be your center screw. It's important to note the differences here. This little guy still on the end of the driver, that will be your side one. So, like I said, as soon as I turn that, you kind of hear that little split just crack. Real concerning sounds, right? Shouldn't be a big deal, but another tip when you're dealing with, special headed fasteners that you may not have extras of, with this that you can get to, once it's got the head exposed out of the plastic, turn it by hand as soon as you can. Then you reduce the risk of stripping anything out, rounding off any corners, particularly if you've got like a bad quality driver. Similarly with these, you cannot do that because they're recessed. So my advice is just to kind of keep it intact and kind of push up, maintain pressure to try and avoid rounding out. But I've got one more to go, and then we should be able to figure out how to take this cover off. Alright, so again, very scary working with plastic on this vehicle for obvious reasons, but this is the steering column lower cover, right? You can kind of see our progress there. This would be the side. There is a clip here on the back. There's sort of one on the side. There's a taller clip on the passenger side, if you will. That funky looking thing that looks like it's like a soft pad, it is, and that's how you can denote that this is how that will go. Again, you can kind of see the provisions for our long silver screw, and then the two short black ones come up and thread in from the bottom. Now right here, obviously we can't take the top off. It's not because of the hazards or anything, it's because of our tilt. I have put the gear selector back in neutral, and then I've dropped the column a little bit, mainly in anticipation of removing the cluster there. What I'm going to try to do is see, I'm not exactly sure, this would have to unscrew somehow, and I think I see a flat on that column. I'm going to go check my manual and see what it says. If anything, it'll probably say remove the steering, the tilt mechanism, which does nothing for you. That's not why you purchase it, but we'll see if we can figure that out. And then, like I said, it should be the 4 screws there, kind of on the white backdrops. It'll take our cluster out. Well, for all you tool people, this is exactly what it looks like. That's right. This is not the XXL Mini Cobras. Don't have those yet. This is the traditional Mini Cobras. This is my field of candidates. Also started out with those guys down there just because they had the soft covers on. Not any space there, but right here, I was finally able to come in. I tried just getting by again with the soft jaws. That wasn't an option. And then with these suckers, we were able to kind of bite down, but trying to protect the finish as much as we can. But again, this is why you have little things, quite literally, like the Mini Cobra. Said it before and I'll say it again, not all heroes wear capes. So there's your proof in the pudding again. There's a flat spot on this lever. That's where I kind of have that first run of masking tape, but there's just no space to really do much of anything. Particularly in my case, the flats were oriented, top and bottom, where you're hitting the steering wheel, or even worse, going right into the gauge cluster, which you do not want to do. So the Mini Cobras came through. I do want to point out, this probably again seemed like a gimmick to a lot of people, but again, these little Heyco wrenches, they're sort of so you can like come in if you had no idea what size you were dealing with and you had these on you, you can be like, hey, great, grab the 9/16, buddy. This was 7/32. That's about what fitted. I started to attempt to use it. I didn't put that bend in it, that's how it comes. But I started to attempt to use it because I didn't have anything that small. The smallest wrench I think I own, it was in here, a little 7, there it is, a little 7mm Hazette. That was still too big. So 7/32 in the event that you want to like do this, like you're planning ahead and you want to pick up something that can handle that. Otherwise, I would recommend something like a small pliers wrench or just the Cobras. Electrical tape, masking tape, whatever you want to do. The masking tape's easier to get off. Electrical tape, if you spool it up, it's going to offer a little bit more protection. But again, that is gone, so while I'm thinking about it, let's just do this. Sweet. So there we are. That's why we took it apart, so we could have that available to us. The hole right, where would it be? I guess back through there would be where that threads in, but this is important to me to come off for 2 reasons. 1, we need it to, and 2, I have a custom gauge mount deal that we'll actually be putting on. It'll offset the gauge, opposite the hazards, so we needed to remove that thing anyway. But there it is. That is our steering wheel column cover removed. We're going to hit these 4 screws, get the gauge cluster out. Alright, so real timing with you. The concern here, of course, is you don't want to screw up your instrument cluster. Pretty much everything else up top is shot already. You got the steering column cover dismantled. But took the 4 screws out. I was having a heck of a time getting this thing out. I figured it would just like pull right out, right? The 4 screws are what hold it in place. There must be some sort of a clip in addition to, I guess, the electrical connections. But what I was able to do is come in with this hand. Only difference is I'm holding a camera now, and I just kind of kept shimmying it, and then I would just sort of increasingly apply pressure, and I was able to get it to pop free. So now that this is popped free, it looks like our obstacle will be this screw down here. I don't know that you can see it too well, but the one below the speedometer is essentially the counterpart to this guy where you see the silver. There's another one right there. It is running into this sort of dust shield for the gear selector. So I'm going to need my second hand, and I'm going to see if I can maybe just tilt and pull out. And then we'll have to see if there's anything on the back we need to disconnect, or if it was all just a plug and play press fit type of a situation. Alright, so not to cheat you out of anything, I did exactly what I said I would, and then I came in and I sort of applied downward pressure to this plastic cover again. if you trace the overdrive off, that would be our gear selector, right? And so it tucks in there. It's kind of just the cover for it. By doing that, you'll note that we were able to sort of tilt, shimmy, and get this on top. Now I should be able to kind of finish the process and pull that thing out of there, so let's see how that goes. Alright, so this is actually kind of a slick setup here. This is almost like what you modify your old car to do, just have the cluster pop out, easy to disconnect. I am not quite sure what it's going to be I'm seeing over here, I don't know, but there is something back here, which it's kind of hard to do this with the camera, but there's a cable down in there. You can kind of see something black snaking towards something white and then hitting the cardboard in that far back corner. I'm going to see if I can disconnect that, and if for all I know it could pull free with it from the bottom, but never done this before. I've never, true story, had a bulb go out in the cluster even, so pretty happy with that little accomplishment across 20 years. So I'll see if we can get that freed up and pulled out, and then we'll take a look at what we've got. Alright, so what that turned out to be is actually, again, our gear selector connection. So I thought we just had to disconnect it, and I assumed, you know, it would have been home free on this front. And what it is, it's going to be super hard to film in there, but there's just like a little tab inside this plastic piece, and it just seats the wire. It's literally like a V-notch, if you will. And once you remove that, you're able to blind yourself with a light, and you'll see now this is freed. So that's most likely going to come with the cluster. You can see I've kind of got it turned this way, but I couldn't get a good angle to see how to disconnect from there, and I thought, well, you know what, that'll come up through the bottom, so I'm gonna grab that, get it out. Again, this is the type of thing when you do find videos, people say, well, we're gonna pull the cluster, and you don't see any of it, and then they don't bother to tell you anything important like that. It's a learning curve there. And again, that service manual I have is a complete joke. Forgot to update you on the tilt mechanism. Our prediction was 100% accurate. It literally said remove the tilt mechanism. So as if that was, you kind of can figure that out. You just sort of were looking for guidance on how to do that. But hey, it is what it is. So I'll get this thing out of here and we'll see where we're at. Alright, so right there, the cluster is out. If you pay careful attention, see our little friend there in the back? Yeah, that's what we disconnected down below the steering column behind the kick panel earlier. So this is what we've got though, and I mean, check that out. You talk about plug and play. You've got kind of the gray connector on the left hand side, black connector on the right hand side, and it just press in and out for this stuff, which is super cool. But again, that's kind of what you strive for with an old car when you're updating it. This opens up a lot of real estate. Let's just examine things here. You can kind of see how the cluster itself is mounted in there. And all that of the dash actually looks to be intact and in good shape. Maybe it'll clear up some access for us to maybe get some wires out of the way, or, you know, declip things a little easier. Cluster itself, let's spin this around in the seat, hopefully without it falling onto the floor. There is our part number. Again, if this is ever relevant, you're restoring things. Factory seems to have scribbled in red, green, blue, and an orange or brown crayon there. Almost looks like an HCC. Red strips there, kind of green here. It's probably some sort of an inspection mark. Now, you'll note familiar faces if you do a lot with instrumentation or gauges or aftermarket anything. We have a whole lot of this brown and gray twist things in there, right, where the cardboard or, you know, the backing isn't present. That is actually your bulb. So if you have a bulb go out, that's where you're going to pull and correct them. Got all the circuitry in there that's protected. Again, right here, that whole mechanism would be our gear selector indicator. And then of course you've got your two tabs here. Kind of 100% idiot proof in this case, unless we just go in and cross wires and switch sides for some reason, which I don't anticipate us doing. So again, 570AB down in the corner, that's definitely a Chrysler part number. But that's where we're at, and pretty soon we'll be taking a closer look at this, maybe in a future project down the road for the Ram Revival. But for now, we've got Denso back there. We've got lots of labeled circuitries there. We've got the bulbs visible, and we're going to get this thing dusted off and probably throw it back into the back seat. So with that said, it's getting pretty late. I have not eaten yet, but I also kind of want to keep working. So we'll see what we get to, but dadgum, we got pretty much everything important out of the way. We got a headlight switch gone. We have dimmer gone. We've got the cluster gone. HVAC controls gone. Stereo gone. Airbag gone. Glove box gone. Airbag control, gone. Plastic cover down there, gone. Steering column cover, gone. I'm thinking we're getting close to possibly wheeling this thing out of here. Now again, what I had referenced earlier about wanting to take the bottom plastic off, I'm not sure how involved that would be, but I do believe the more I've studied it, I think they had the sub-dash assembly, the lower plastic, and then the top come on. And the issue with the top is then it would be nested over our bottom dash that we're wanting to get out as well. And the reason that's an issue is, now I could be wrong, I'm assuming people pull the dash, you know, so they can have full access to everything. Maybe the defroster vents have screws or something. I may come in and start pulling these screws here and see what this is looking like. And if I think I can shell this thing off, we might do that. But I'm assuming there's some reason, most likely, you know, like mounting provisions we can't see here at the front or on the top. It must be like bottom up type of a thing. But otherwise, I have no idea why anyone would take the dash out, so it must be something we can't see, because you could easily replace the skin if you go about it in this manner. So we're still figuring that out. Again, it's little things, you know, like the rust and everything. Maybe we'll hit it, maybe we won't, I don't know. But right now I'm still waiting. It's been 2+ weeks. I'm waiting on braces for my engine stand, so I guess we got a little time to kill. But anyway, I'll get on this and be trying to figure out what we're gonna do, make a game plan and go from there. I do want to point out while I'm thinking about it, I think I forgot last time, this is not natural, okay? It should be a slot like this with nothing in it. This is a clip that broke off of our instrument bezel. It happened on the very end down there too, and I think one on the bottom side, bottom low, kind of below like your garage door opener slot. So nothing major. Again, we're replacing all that. I've got more clips in the felt pads coming from LMC, but I'll just be playing around, kind of trying to figure out a game plan. But nice little progress tonight. So got some big things done. We didn't break, as far as I know, our gear indicator, which was one of the goals. And the steering column's intact. I can thread that back in. Right now it's down all the way. To get that out, it makes it really difficult for me to snake in and sit in the seat comfortably with the steering wheel digging into me. We would still need to drop the column, but I might come in and see if that top dash is wanting to come off or not. We can easily thread those screws back in. So I will be trying to figure up a game plan there, and we will catch you back shortly. Alright, so it is kind of getting dark outside. I've also still not eaten and getting super late in addition to getting dark. It tends to coincide. Things also coincide is making a plan. That's exactly what I said we were going to do. And as you can see right here, this is one of the rises up in our dash. And what I was trying to do is determine what was going on aside from the screaming people outside. And I don't know that you'll be able to see it, but you see we kind of got like the wires and the black structure here, and then there's the black structure with kind of like a flat lip in the center section. If you go back behind that, see that like kind of strengthening rib with the hash marks beside it? That would be one of our defroster ducts pointing up towards the windshield. Now if I position this just right, do you see that tan thing sort of like underneath that wire hook? See what I'm talking about? I'm thinking, you know, it's plastic, so anything's possible, but I am assuming that if we were to roll the dash forward or have it out of the vehicle, I'm thinking there would be a screw, just like everything that we removed, on the flip side of that, essentially facing down at an angle towards the firewall. Let me try to get this, sort of have a better idea of what I'm talking about. Let's see, right, I think you can see it there if you know what you're looking for. There's another one coming down. I'm gonna try, like if you extended my finger straight, that tan piece that sort of drops from the dash down, I think that's actually a structural piece, just like what you would see right here where the screws were. And I think that they've got a screw coming up from the defroster vents into that portion of the dash. Now I could be 100% wrong there, but what I tried to do, you know, I've taken out the screws from this entire top structure like I told you I would do. I also came in unannounced and took out the two, or the first two if you want to call them, kind of dash to cowl retaining bolts, 8mm head on top of those suckers, and that made it to where the dash will flop a little bit, right? And the thing is, it's not flopping as much as you think it should flop, and I believe that's because where we're encountering resistance would be the defroster vents that you see there and there. Again, I could be mistaken, but I'm thinking that's probably the case. Now we could potentially just rip this thing off. I'm imagining, based on the frailty of this top dash plastic, it would probably splinter fairly well around our defroster vents. But again, I'm trying not to purchase defroster vents if I don't have to, so we may take the thing out as an assembly. I'll probably shoot a few screws back into this thing, sort of hold it in place. But I wanted to highlight that. I tell you these things and I never really show you. But if you come down here, which is awkward because the camera strap's dropping down. That right there, something as dumb as that, just a quick little diagram. It doesn't have to be fancy. It does not have to be published. Something that you can reference and understand. To you, that probably looks terrible. To me, it doesn't look great, but I know what I meant when I made it. And then I make legends. That helps immensely. Another thing I did, this little piece right here, this is also why I keep cardboard, right? If I bring you up top, that, you're thinking, what does that look like? Kinda, sort of like your dash bezel or something. Well, that's exactly what I was going for. I just roughly sketched out a dash bezel, and then I pinned these screws through the cardboard, which is really hard to do because they're, not, they're blunt, they're not sharp tipped. I'd recommend an awl. That's one of the many uses for an owl that people tend to forget. Little red-handled Felo thing that looks like you'd stab someone with. Perfect for this application. Right here, this is the 8mm bolt that holds the dash to the cowl. But given that I need to eat supper and I also have to go to work tomorrow, I think we're at another stopping point. But at least this one looks good. We got the steering column cover, the gear selector. We also got the instrument cluster out of there. We've kind of studied up, by way of trial and error, and figured out what I think we need to know moving forward. And I believe at this point in time, we're probably ready. There's most likely going to be some electrical connections we're going to have to contend with, and they'll probably be a complete pain in the butt, and especially when we can't see them well. But we'll probably be able to drop the column, and what I mean by that is the two nuts, just like an old school Mopar, right? We will drop the column. I think it will sit on the seat, at least how it's positioned right now. It should. Might put a stand under it, long term if I'm going to have the dash out a while. But I'm thinking we will try to snake the whole thing out assembled. Then we'll be able, assuming there are screws on the back, if it's just like plastic welded or something, we can buzz cut it off much easier out of the truck than in the truck. So regardless, we'll dismantle the top structure. We have the new one ready to go, but before we do that, I want to then, when the dash is out of the vehicle, I want to pull the plastic substructure, the lower half of the dash, exposing all of the bare metal framework, and then I'm going to hit that. I've not really seen anything grounded to that framework yet. There probably is. If that's the case, we'll just kind of scuff the paint off and get a real clean ground for it. But I think we will probably go ahead and paint everything because we have it taken down to this point. That'll also buy me time if I decide to do anything to the heater box. But UPS and FedEx both went by super late. Like FedEx went by, geez, it's almost 9 now, probably 8:30. UPS, I think, was like 7:45-ish. I had high hopes that, my braces for the engine stand were going to be there, but they didn't stop here. So who knows, maybe tomorrow. But speaking of tomorrow, I got to go eat. And, the phone's about to die anyway, but this is pretty good progress here. So I'll probably shoot a few of these screws back through here just for support. And I do think that the defroster vents, which again, if I bring you up there, you can kind of see our issue. There's one underneath all those tools over there. Got another one, our third passenger side, 2 driver side, if you will. We also have not forgotten about this little guy. I don't know if that's an 8mm or something bigger. I can't feel if there's a slot. I'm going to stay seated because I'm wedged in here because I have this tilted all the way. But good progress tonight for an after work type of deal. Again, this is the stupid little stuff I tell you about. It looks dumb, I'll admit it. but it keeps track of your hardware. And if you come in and you're reassembling this and you have your hardware here, number one, you don't lose it, and if you do, you lose everything and you can get new hardware. But number two, you can come in and any person that's putting that back together, as crude as that is, can look at it and say, oh, well, you know, that's going to go in that corner, and then let's see, it comes up, and oh, look at that line, must be going to put a screw there, and you just figure it out, right? So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Again, apologies here. I try to walk you through this as I discover it. I've never had to take the dash out, so I don't know anything about it. I just go by what I've read, what I've seen, which is super limited, and then most importantly, what I experience. Little things, you know, like no one ever says, you know, you still got that to contend with, and you have to pull it out through the top or disconnect it from the cluster. So as I discover things, I introduce them. That's one of the reasons it takes a little longer. Then it's real time. Again, bottom line, if I want to do this and I can do it, if you want to do it, you can do it. And that's one of those things, you don't have to take it to a shop and spend tons of money. If you got the time and the willpower, you would be amazed what you can accomplish. But speaking of that, I'm going to go accomplish supper, so I hope you're enjoying. No clue if this will be a standalone or part of a video, but made some significant progress in terms of understanding and learning tonight regardless. So on that note, I'll quit rambling. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you back here for the next thrilling installments of the Ram Revival.